Sandra Birchmore, she was the 12-year-old young woman who wanted to go into the Police Explorer program, and she did, going through some very difficult things in her life at that moment in time. Parents had passed, grandma had passed, and, vulnerable, looking for, some figures, some adult figures for some guidance. Well, she found it. However, those adult figures had more than just guidance in mind. They had sexual assault and grooming in mind, allegedly, and that's where that case is at, after she was murdered because she became pregnant with one of the officers' babies, allegedly Matthew Farwell's, allegedly. Oh, but it doesn't stop there. The brother got in on it too. William allegedly was over there, having his way with her. Oh, and the school resource officer too. It's so twisted. Jennifer Coffindaffer, retired FBI special agent, joining me to discuss this case. We got obviously Matthew charged. He's behind bars right now. The brother though, William, I'm still curious about this. We're hearing more and more claiming that there was a sexual encounter 22 days before her death, knowing she was pregnant with his brother's child. Um, why no charges over here? Is it because there really wasn't any sort of crimes committed, or at least none that they can track right now that go younger than her being 18?
Right. The thing is, was she a minor or was she a consenting adult when she engaged in sexual relationships with the brother? And at this point, there's no information apparently that authorities have that it was prior, and that the relationship or sexual relationship was consensual. So unless they breach that, or unless they find out that the brother helped Matthew Farwell cover up or otherwise be engaged in the crime that he committed, at least allegedly committed, in murdering her and staging the murder to look like a suicide, unless they can, or cover up at the end any sort of uh, aiding and abetting that case, their hands are tied. I mean, it's just such a moral sick situation, but I do find it very interesting that he has declared, that he can never be a law enforcement officer
Mhm.
again. I think all of us expect that to happen, but he did that pretty easily, and so it makes me wonder what else might be await him in terms of punishment, because that's a big punishment if that's all you've ever done is
It
be a
is.
police officer, and now you can't.
Could that be part of a bigger deal that we've not heard about yet? Could he be on the other side of this talking and really sharing the information on his brother to incriminate him as much as possible in exchange for immunity or maybe a future lesser sentence should he be charged?
I think it's possible. I really do. The government is going to want more details. They have the conversations. They have the video of him being in the, in her building and his face being covered and so on and so forth. They have a lot of good circumstantial evidence. But boy, if they could get somebody to just wrap it up in a bow to talk about how either he bragged about it or told his brother about what he had done, about how he staged everything, exactly why he did it. I think most of us can understand. But if you have a witness that can come forward and say, yeah, he told me this, that would be just dynamite for this case. And they want to make sure this case is rock solid. They do not want him being acquitted in this case.
Yeah. I want to ask you another question about this case because I find it insanely ironic and I don't really believe in coincidences. I don't see any clear connection here of impropriety, but it certainly is weird. Michael Proctor, also the first officer on the scene at uh, at not only this case, but on at the case of another case that we've been following for about a year and a half now, the Ana Walsh case, where Brian Walsh, the man who did all those Google searches right after allegedly murdering his wife on New Year's Day in 23, it was Proctor that was on the scene there as well. I just find it insanely odd that it's a small department, the same officer is in three major stories that we cover. I've never seen this before.
Well, I think there's a couple of things to consider. First of all, of course, he works for the Massachusetts State Police, and the
Hmm.
Massachusetts State Police, unlike some other jurisdictions throughout the country, the minute it becomes a case like this that could be, I think in this case they believed it was a suicide from the signs they initially looked at, but there's still it's a death.
Yeah.
And so death investigations are going to be investigated by the state police immediately. So it's not like a lot of other jurisdictions where those jurisdictions have their own homicides
Hmm.
departments and their own homicide detectives that investigate it. This always goes straight to the state unit.
Okay.
So now you have within the Massachusetts State Police Department just a finite number of Massachusetts state detectives or they're troopers, but they're really homicide detectives. That's what they're assigned to do.
Hmm.
And then of that group, which is typically seen as the highest level of detective you can achieve.
Hmm.
It is the gold standard within your department. You usually go from, a property guy and then maybe domestic violence and then to get a homicide detective role, trooper role in this case, it's a big accolade, the
Yeah.
best of the best usually. And so it's a small department and in relation to all the other troopers and Tony, you have a certain area you cover, if you will.
Yeah.
Obviously, Proctor isn't gonna, you know, cover hundreds of miles from where he's at. It's divided up in this way that you have a territory. And the other thing is that people might not realize is you're literally on call at certain times. So it could be every other weekend, it could be every third weekend, but you're on call for any death that occurs, and so you go out. So I know it seems uh really,
Yeah.
coincidental. But I would argue that it's not really coincidental that he's probably on so many of these death investigations because of the numbers.
It just happens that there were these three major ones in a very condensed area. I mean, it does make sense. I'm not saying there's any impropriety by Proctor on this or on the Ana Walsh case. It's just like, what? What? Like, it would be so much better if it was like, he's a great officer. Look how the good work he did in the Karen Reed case. Look all the good work he did in the Sandra Birchmore case. Unfortunately, that's not reality. It's more like that's the last man you want on this case. And there he is popping up his head in that one. It's I mean, it's so much so that the attorneys, the defense for Brian Walsh are requesting his phone data because they want to see what was going on in his cell phone during the time of Brian Walsh's charging and arrest. They're basing that on the Karen Reed situation to see what other things he may have been saying and what sort of improprieties may have been going on there. God knows what they're going to find if they get access to those records, if they even still exist. But yeah,
Well, yeah, Tony, they're looking for a similar type of statement,
they
right?
are.
In the Karen Reed case, he said defaming things about her. I mean, basically, he believed she was responsible for John O'Keefe's murder early on, based on all the
Yeah.
circumstances. Again, that case, in my view, is not a wire fraud or wiretap huge conspiracy involving a lot of people. It's a hit and run to me, a
Yeah.
domestic hit and run
Sure.
situation,
Sure.
and he viewed it that way, and he quickly came to a judgment and said despicable things about her
Hmm.
when it's presumed that law enforcement officers do not talk about people that are involved in their investigations in this way, and
Yeah.
they're wanting his records to see how he talked about Brian Walsh and probably talked about him pretty similarly.
I don't think he's going to call Brian Walsh though a no ass bitch. I just don't see that being one of the phrases he used. I'm sure there's probably some choice phrases in there, but Brian ain't a no ass bitch.
Yeah. Well, I'll agree with you on that one. Um, but probably derogatory.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's totally guessing. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, based on things we know that he wrote in regard to the Karen Reed case, we know it's very possible he could have referred to other people he thought were murderers in that same way.
Yeah. I agree. Hey, thanks for checking out the video. Be sure to follow us wherever you download podcasts, and especially Apple Podcasts, where you can get advanced episode and premium content on our premium channel right there. Also, be sure to follow us on social media so you don't miss any breaking updates on the stories that matter to you most. We're on TikTok, X, Instagram, Facebook. Just search Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Bruschi, and you'll find us right there. Again, thanks for watching.